You know what is funny about rich people? They never see the trap until it is too late. We only want the right kind of people at our wedding, Janet, not your construction friends. My daughter's fiancé just sealed his fate with 12 words. Brandon Ashford, investment banker, old Charlotte money, Princeton graduate, standing in my modest living room Thursday night, dismissing 3 decades of sweat and sacrifice. I did not raise my voice, did not defend myself, just nodded slowly. That calm smile my construction crews know means someone is about to learn a very expensive lesson. See, Brandon thought he was talking to some lucky contractor who had done well for herself. He had no idea the woman he was dismissing owned the relationships that would make or break his perfect $115,000 wedding. 24 hours later, his wedding would vanish. His reputation would crumble. And 165 guests would witness exactly who the right kind of people really were. But first, let me show you how this played out. Let me show you what 32 years of building an empire from nothing actually means. Let me show you what happens when old money underestimates new power. The disrespect did not start Thursday night. It had been building for months, one small cut at a time. It began in March when Brandon first saw my guest list for the wedding, 32 names. My construction crew foremen, the contractors who had helped me build Carrington Construction and Development from nothing. Michael Torres, who taught me commercial building codes when I was the only black woman on job sites. David Chen, who vouched for me when banks would not look at a woman contractor twice. These were not just employees, they were family. Mom, maybe we should reconsider some of these invitations. Simone said it gently that evening in March. Brandon's arm around her shoulders, like he owned her already. The Ashford family has certain expectations about their guest list. Brandon nodded approvingly, his Princeton ring catching the light. It is nothing personal, Janet, but a wedding reflects the families involved. We need to think about how this looks to our circle. Our circle. That phrase would haunt me for weeks. By April, my list had been refined. The construction guys were out. My church friends from West Charlotte, gone. Even Miss Patricia, who had watched Simone grow up while I worked 18-hour days. Too informal for an Ashford wedding, Brandon explained. We are keeping it intimate, just family and people who matter in our world. I watched my daughter's face during these conversations. Simone, my pride and joy, the first Carrington to graduate with a business degree. She would squirm uncomfortably but never spoke up. Love makes you blind, I told myself. She will see eventually, but it got worse. Much worse. In May, Brandon suggested I might want to upgrade my wardrobe for wedding-related events. He handed me a business card for his family's personal stylist. Nothing offensive, Janet, but you will be meeting some influential people. First impressions matter in our community. Influential people. There was that phrase again. Like the people I had been doing business with for 32 years did not influence anything. The real slap came during the venue walkthrough at Charlotte Country Club in June. I had paid the $1,500 deposit myself. Money I had earned laying foundation in 95-degree Carolina heat, while Brandon was playing tennis at prep school. This is Simone's mother. Brandon introduced me to the wedding planner. She owns a construction company. Local work, mostly. The way he said it. Like I built tool sheds instead of the luxury developments his friends lived in. Like Carrington, construction had not completed 892 projects across 3 states. Like my company logo was not on construction sites from Charlotte to Raleigh. But here is what Brandon did not know about that country club. In 2019, Carrington Construction had renovated their entire south wing. $2.3 million of work. I knew every board member by name, had their personal cell numbers, had saved their project when the original contractor walked off the job. I just smiled and shook hands. Let Brandon think I was impressed by his family's membership. By July, the pattern was crystal clear. Brandon was systematically erasing my life from his wedding. My business associates were too focused on work. My church friends might not understand the social atmosphere. Even my brother Thomas, a successful surgeon at Carolinas Medical Center, was questioned. Is he established in the right circles? Thomas had been saving lives for 23 years, but apparently that was not the right kind of established for the Ashfords. The final insult came 3 weeks ago. Brandon arrived at my house with revised seating charts. I found myself at table 15, back corner, next to the kitchen service doors. Simone's father, God rest his soul, would have been furious. His picture sat on the mantel watching this entitled boy disrespect everything we had built together. It is just logistics, Janet. Brandon said it without even looking at me. The front tables are reserved for immediate family and key business relationships. Key business relationships. I had built a $135 million company from nothing. Carrington Construction employed 365 people. We had completed projects worth over $400 million. Built shopping centers, office complexes, luxury condominiums. My company had helped reshape Charlotte's skyline over 3 decades. But I was not a key business relationship. That is when I started making phone calls. Quiet inquiries about Brandon Ashford and Ashford Capital Management. What I discovered made my blood run cold and my resolve crystal clear. Brandon was not just dismissing my background, he was hiding his own dirty secrets. Ashford Capital Management managed $900 million in client assets. Impressive numbers on paper. But Detective Raymond Mitchell, the private investigator I used for employee background checks, found some very interesting discrepancies. Missing client funds, unexplained wire transfers, gambling debts totaling $475,000 to Atlantic City casinos. Brandon Ashford, the man judging my worthiness, was embezzling from elderly clients to fund his lifestyle. The Securities and Exchange Commission had opened a formal investigation 3 months ago. Federal agents were building a case. Brandon's perfect wedding was happening just weeks before his perfect world would collapse. But he did not know I knew. He thought he was marrying into money, my money, to solve his problems. The wedding was his last performance before the inevitable arrest. Thursday night, when he stood in my living room and dismissed my construction friends as not the right kind of people, something inside me clicked. This was not about social status anymore. This was about character. This was about a man who had never earned anything questioning the worth of a woman who had earned everything. Brandon thought he was dealing with just another contractor who had gotten lucky. Some black woman who had done well but did not really understand his world. What he did not realize was that luck had nothing to do with it. For 32 years, I had built more than buildings. I had built relationships, trust, respect, a reputation that opened doors and moved mountains. A network of people who remembered when Janet Carrington kept her word, finished jobs on time, stood by her commitments. Friday morning, Brandon Ashford would discover exactly how many mountains I could move, and exactly how quickly his perfect wedding could disappear. Friday morning, 7:15. My phone would ring. Brandon's voice would be different. Not entitled, not dismissive. Desperate. Because by then, his wedding venues would be vanishing. One by one, like dominoes falling. And he would finally understand what 32 years of honest work actually built. Not just buildings, power, real power. The kind you earn. The kind that lasts. The kind that does not need old family names or Princeton degrees. The kind that destroys entitled boys who mistake inheritance for achievement. Let me take you back to March. Back to when I still thought this was just wedding planning stress. Back to when I believed Brandon's family would eventually accept me. I was wrong. The erasure was intentional, calculated, and it started with my guest list sitting on Simone's kitchen table in her uptown apartment. "Mom, we need to talk about your invitations." Simone poured coffee with hands that shook slightly. Brandon's mother has some concerns. Catherine Ashford had concerns. Of course she did. I had met Catherine twice. Both times she had smiled with her mouth but not her eyes. Both times she had asked where I was originally from. Charlotte, I would say. No, but where are you really from? West Charlotte. Born and raised. The disappointment on her face was obvious every time. What kind of concerns, baby? Well, she thinks some of your guests might not be comfortable at Myers Park Country Club. The atmosphere can be, she paused, searching for the right word, formal. My construction crews had built half of Myers Park, but apparently they would not be comfortable there. I see. And Brandon agrees. Brandon thinks we should focus on blending our social circles appropriately. His colleagues from Ashford Capital, his parents' friends from the country club, your business associates from the Chamber of Commerce. Business associates from the Chamber of Commerce. Not my crew. Not the men and women who had helped me build an empire. The people who wore suits to networking events. What about Michael Torres? He has been with Carrington Construction since the beginning. Mom, Michael is wonderful, but he is a foreman. Brandon's family, they are very particular about, she stopped herself. About what? About maintaining certain standards. I felt something crack inside my chest. Simone was my daughter. My brilliant, educated, successful daughter, and she was apologizing for the man who taught her to ride a bike when she was 6. By April, the list had been cut in half. Michael Torres, gone. David Chen, gone. Patricia Johnson from church, gone. My Thursday night book club, gone. The women who had supported me through my husband's death, through building my company, through every struggle, not sophisticated enough for the Ashfords. In May, Catherine Ashford invited me to lunch at the Charlotte Country Club. Just us girls, she said on the phone. Her voice had that sweet southern poison I recognized from 3 decades of doing business in a man's industry. We sat on the terrace overlooking the golf course. Catherine wore pearls and a Chanel suit. I wore my best business dress, the one I saved for major client meetings. Janet, I wanted to talk to you about the wedding. Of course. You have done so well for yourself, building your little construction company from nothing. Really quite impressive for someone from your background. My background. There it was. The polite Southern way of saying what she really meant. Brandon tells me you have been very generous with the wedding budget. We appreciate that. Of course. But there are some aspects of planning that require a certain, she paused delicately, understanding of social expectations. You mean my guest list? She smiled. That tight smile again. Brandon mentioned some of your invitations might not align with the tone we are trying to set. These events have lasting social implications, Janet. The people you associate with reflect on the entire family. The Ashford name has meant something in Charlotte for 5 generations. I understand you want to include people who have been important to you. But perhaps there are more appropriate ways to celebrate with them. Separately. Separately. Like a children's table at Thanksgiving, Catherine continued. Brandon's father has invited Senator Williams. The Morrison family will be there. Robert Chen from Chen Capital Partners. These are relationships that could benefit Simone's future, but they require a certain level of social fluency. And you do not think my people have that fluency. I think your people are lovely, Janet, but they come from a different world. Mixing those worlds can be uncomfortable for everyone involved. June brought the venue walkthrough. Brandon, Simone, Catherine, and me. The wedding planner led us through Charlotte Country Club's ballroom. This is where the Ashford family has celebrated every major milestone for 50 years, Catherine announced. Brandon's grandparents were married here, his parents' anniversary party. Our engagement to the community. The wedding planner showed us seating charts. Catherine immediately took over. Front tables for immediate family and our closest friends. The Whitmans, the Harrisons, Senator Williams and his wife, Brandon's Princeton classmates. Then she pointed to a table in the back corner, near the kitchen service entrance. Perhaps Janet's guests could sit here, more casual, less formal pressure. Table 15. I would be at table 15 at my own daughter's wedding. Simone looked at the floor, said nothing. Brandon nodded approvingly. That works well, Mother. Keeps things organized by social connection. Social connection. I had paid for Simone's entire education, $72,000 in tuition at Wake Forest. Every penny from these hands. From the construction sites Brandon found so embarrassing. July was when I knew this marriage was a mistake. We were at Catherine's home in Myers Park for a family dinner. Her house was everything mine was not. Old money, inherited furniture, oil paintings of ancestors. She served wine that cost more than my first truck. Over dinner, Catherine told stories about the Ashford family legacy, how they had shaped Charlotte society, how their connections opened doors, how breeding and background mattered. Then she turned to me. Janet, you must be so proud of how far you have come. From your humble beginnings to owning your own little business. It is a real American success story. My little business employed 365 people, but to Catherine Ashford, it would always be little, because I had built it with my own hands instead of inheriting it. Because I was a black woman from West Charlotte instead of a white woman from Myers Park. Brandon agreed with everything his mother said, nodded at every subtle insult, smiled when she questioned my background, and Simone, my daughter, sat there silent. 3 weeks ago Thursday night, Brandon came to my house with final seating arrangements. That is when he said it, the words that changed everything. We only want the right kind of people at our wedding, Janet, not your construction friends. I smiled, that calm smile, and I started making calls. Friday morning, 7:30. My phone rang while I was reviewing Carrington Construction's weekly project reports. Brandon's name flashed on the screen. I always record my business calls. 32 years in construction taught me that people say things then deny them later. Brandon was about to give me the gift of his own words on tape. Janet, we need to talk. His voice carried that entitled edge I had grown to hate. About yesterday's conversation. I stayed quiet, let him dig. Look, I need you to understand something about this wedding. This is not just about Simone and me. This is about two families coming together. The Ashford name has stood for something in Charlotte for 5 generations. I see. My mother is hosting a pre-wedding dinner next Thursday at the club. The guest list is very selective. We are talking about people who have shaped this community, business leaders, political connections, established families. And your concern is? The thing is, Janet, your people. Your friends from the construction sites. They would not be comfortable in that environment. And honestly, they might make other guests uncomfortable too. My grip tightened on the phone, but my voice stayed level. My people. Do not take it personally. It is just reality. Look at the Henderson wedding last year. His tech friends. Her Myers Park crowd. They kept the groups separate. Everyone stayed in their lane. Their lane. This boy was actually telling me to stay in my lane. Brandon, let me ask you something. What exactly do you think I do for a living? A pause. You run a construction company. You have done well for yourself, obviously. Simone mentioned Carrington Construction is successful, local projects mostly, and that is great, Janet. Really? My grandfather always said Charlotte needs good contractors. You have built a solid business. But this wedding, the people attending, we are talking about a different caliber. A different caliber. The man was literally explaining social hierarchy to me. Tell me about this different caliber, son. Well, there is my father's law partners, federal judges. The Whitman family owns the largest private bank in the Carolinas. Senator Williams will be there. These are people who move markets, who influence policy. They speak a certain language. What language is that? The language of real influence, Janet. Generational wealth. Established power. Look, I am not trying to be offensive, but there is a difference between new money and, he paused, money that has been refined over time. Refined money, like wine aging in a cellar getting better with time. So my money is not refined enough. It is not about the money itself. It is about understanding how to navigate certain circles, how to present yourself. My family has been part of Charlotte's establishment for over a century. We understand these people. We know their expectations, and I do not. Honestly, no. And that is okay. You have achieved something remarkable. You came from West Charlotte with nothing and built something that is admirable in its own way. In its own way, like I had won a participation trophy, but Simone is marrying into a different world now, a world with different standards, the American dream. He said it like I had gotten lucky at bingo. Different standards. Exactly. Look, Janet, I need you to understand something. This marriage is Simone's chance to elevate herself, to become part of something bigger than, well, bigger than where she came from. Bigger than where she came from, bigger than me. What exactly are you asking me to do, Brandon? I am asking you to think about what is best for Simone. Maybe you could host a separate celebration for your people, something more casual. A cookout, perhaps, after the official wedding. That way everyone is included but in appropriate settings. A cookout for the inappropriate people. And you think this is what Simone wants? Simone wants to fit into her new family. She wants to be accepted. And she will be. As long as we are thoughtful about how we handle these social transitions. Brandon, let me be very clear. Are you asking me not to invite my friends to my daughter's wedding? I am asking you to consider the optics. This wedding is about Simone's future, our future. The Ashford family has connections that could transform her career, her social standing, her entire trajectory. But that requires us to be strategic about associations. Strategic about associations. I was an association to be managed. Janet, I am going to be direct with you. Your background, your business, your friends, they represent a certain narrative. Self-made success from humble beginnings. That is wonderful. But it does not align with the image Simone needs to cultivate in our circles. Some people, frankly, might question why Brandon Ashford is marrying beneath his social tier. Marrying beneath his social tier. There it was, the truth finally naked and ugly. You think Simone is beneath you. I think Simone is extraordinary. But her mother's background could complicate her acceptance in certain spaces. Unless we manage the narrative carefully, manage the narrative, by hiding me. By presenting your family story in a way that emphasizes Simone's education and professional accomplishments rather than, he paused again, rather than the construction business background. You know what, Brandon? You are absolutely right. I am? This wedding should absolutely reflect the kind of people you and Simone truly are. Exactly. I knew you would understand eventually. Oh, I understand perfectly. In fact, I think I understand better than you do. Something in my tone must have changed because Brandon went quiet. Is everything okay, Janet? Everything is perfect, son. You have made everything crystal clear. Good. So we are on the same page about the guest list adjustments? We are definitely on the same page about who belongs at this wedding. After I hung up, I sat in my office for 10 minutes, listening to the recording play back, every word, every insult, every casual dismissal of my life, my work, my worth. Brandon had just given me 26 minutes of ammunition. 26 minutes of him explaining why a black woman who built a $135 million empire was not good enough for his old Charlotte money family. More importantly, he had given me moral permission for what came next. By noon, Brandon Ashford would learn the difference between inherited privilege and earned power. The hard way. I made the decision at 11:42, staring at my daughter's graduation photo on my desk. Simone, in her cap and gown, valedictorian at Wake Forest School of Business. The first Carrington to earn a graduate degree. I had worked double shifts for 3 years to pay her tuition. Never missed a parent conference, never missed a ceremony. That girl was my everything. But she deserved better than Brandon Ashford. My phone buzzed. Simone calling. "Mom, Brandon said you two had a good conversation this morning. He said you understood about the wedding arrangements." Her voice sounded relieved but fragile, like she had been holding her breath for months. "We definitely understood each other, sweetheart." "Good. I know this has been complicated, but Brandon's family has certain traditions. And honestly, Mom, this could be really good for my career. His father's firm represents major corporations. There could be opportunities for me." Simone, yes. "Do you love him?" Silence. Too long of a silence. "Of course I love him, Mom. Why would you ask that?" "Because love does not ask you to be ashamed of where you came from." Another pause. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. "I am not ashamed, Mom. I am just trying to fit into his world. And sometimes that means making adjustments." Adjustments. Just like her fiancé said. "Honey, let me ask you something. When you bring Brandon to our house, does he ask about the photos on the mantle? About your father's story? About how we built this life? Mom, does he ask about the business? About the people who helped us? Does he want to know anything about the life that made you who you are?" Silence again. "Simone, a man who truly loves you does not ask you to erase your history. He celebrates it. It is not that simple, Mom. His family has expectations." "And what about our family? What about our expectations?" I heard her crying softly. My heart broke. "Mom, I just want this to work. I want to be accepted." "Baby girl, you do not need acceptance from people who will never accept you as you are." After she hung up, I sat there for 10 minutes thinking about the man Simone was about to marry. A man who saw her mother as a liability. A man who would spend their marriage teaching her to be ashamed of the very strength that made her extraordinary. That is when I opened my laptop and started making calls. First call, Detective Raymond Mitchell, my private investigator, the man who had done background checks for Carrington Construction for 15 years. "Raymond, I need everything you can get me on Brandon Ashford and Ashford Capital Management. Financial records, client complaints, SEC filings, everything." "How fast do you need it, Janet?" "By 3 this afternoon." "Jesus, Janet, that is pushing it hard. Push harder. There is a $15,000 bonus if you deliver by 3. You got it." Second call, Charlotte Country Club. "Hello, Mrs. Patterson. This is Janet Carrington from Carrington Construction. I need to discuss the Ashford-Carrington wedding booking." "Yes, I know it is short notice." "No, there has been a family emergency." The conversation lasted 14 minutes. Mrs. Patterson was apologetic, but understanding. The $1,500 deposit would be fully refunded due to the circumstances. Third call, the Ritz-Carlton, Charlotte. "Mr. Hayes, Janet Carrington. We did your ballroom renovation in 2018. "That is right. Under budget and 2 weeks ahead of schedule. I need a favor." The Ritz had been Brandon's backup venue. The grand ballroom he had reserved for $8,000 suddenly became unavailable due to structural concerns that would require immediate inspection by Carrington Construction. Fourth call, Duke Mansion. This one was personal. I had restored their historic property in 2016. Saved them $400,000 when I discovered the original contractor was using substandard materials. The director, Margaret Foster, owed me more than money. She owed me the mansion's reputation. "Margaret, it is Janet. I need the Ashford wedding booking canceled." "No, I cannot explain right now." "Yes, I know it is your biggest event this quarter. Margaret, trust me on this one." By 2 o'clock, Brandon Ashford's perfect wedding venues were disappearing one by one. But I was not done. At 2:43, Raymond called back. "Janet, you are not going to believe what I found. Brandon Ashford is in deep. The SEC has been investigating Ashford Capital Management for 4 months. Client fund misappropriation. We are talking $2.6 million in suspicious wire transfers. Keep going. It gets worse. The man has gambling debts. Serious ones. $475,000 to 3 different Atlantic City casinos. There is evidence he has been using client money to cover losses. When does this go public? FBI raid is scheduled for Monday morning. Arrest warrant by Tuesday afternoon. Brandon Ashford had 1 weekend left as a free man. 1 weekend to learn what happened when you disrespected the wrong woman. Raymond, I need victim names. Clients he stole from. Already got them. 14 elderly clients, most of them retirees. Janet, this is bad. Really bad. Some of these people lost their entire retirement savings. Give me names and numbers. Dorothy Thompson, 79. He took $190,000 from her account. James and Linda Washington, both 73. Their grandson's college fund, $260,000. Gone. Mary Rodriguez, 76. Medical expenses fund, $140,000. Disappeared. 14 families destroyed so Brandon Ashford could play poker and maintain his lifestyle while lecturing me about refined money and appropriate social circles. Raymond, send me everything. Bank records, casino receipts, client testimonies, all of it. You planning something, Janet? I am planning to show 165 wedding guests exactly who Brandon Ashford really is and exactly what the right kind of people look like. Be careful, Janet. The Ashfords have serious connections. Federal judges, politicians. Old Charlotte money protects its own. The Ashfords are about to discover that 32 years of honest work builds connections that old money cannot buy. Connections built on trust, not inheritance. On respect, not entitlement. On delivering what you promise, not stealing what is not yours. I hung up and looked at the evidence Raymond was emailing me. 49 pages of federal investigation documents. Bank records showing wire transfers from elderly clients' accounts to casino cages. Screenshots of Brandon's gambling losses. SEC complaint filings. Brandon Ashford had called my friends inappropriate, had dismissed my life's work as not refined enough, had told me to stay in my lane. Now he was about to learn that my lane was wide enough to hold the truth, and the truth was about to run him over. Friday, 3:15. Brandon's panic started with a phone call from his wedding planner. I know because Simone called me 25 minutes later, her voice shaking. Mom, something weird is happening. Brandon just got a call from the wedding planner. Charlotte Country Club canceled our booking. They said there was a family emergency, but that does not make sense. We had contracts. That is strange, honey. And the Ritz just called too. They said there are structural concerns in the grand ballroom. Major inspection needed. They are refunding our deposit. I made sympathetic noises while reviewing Carrington Construction's client list. 32 years of building relationships was about to pay dividends. Mom, Brandon, is freaking out. He is calling everyone he knows trying to find another venue. But everything good is booked months in advance. I am sure he will figure something out. What Brandon did not know, what nobody knew except me, was exactly how deep Carrington Construction's roots ran in Charlotte. We had not just built buildings. We had built the infrastructure of an entire community's social life. 3:45. My phone rang. Duke Mansion. Miss Carrington. This is Jennifer, from Duke Mansion. I wanted to personally apologize about the wedding cancellation. Miss Foster explained there were family circumstances. I appreciate you calling, Jennifer. We are refunding the full $12,000 deposit, of course, and Miss Foster wanted me to tell you that if you need anything else, anything at all, just call. Margaret Foster understood loyalty. When her historic restoration project had hit permitting problems in 2016, I had personally walked the plans through City Hall, called in favors, smoothed the way. The mansion had reopened on schedule because of relationships I had spent decades building. 4:20. Simone called again. Now she sounded scared. Mom, 4 more venues just canceled. The Peninsula Club, Mint Museum Uptown, Foundation for the Carolinas, even the NASCAR Hall of Fame. They all have different excuses, but Brandon says this cannot be a coincidence. It was not a coincidence. It was a masterclass in leverage. The Peninsula Club, Carrington Construction, had built their entire event center in 2017. The project manager still invited me to his daughter's graduation. Mint Museum, we had renovated their climate control system, saved them $300,000 when I caught design flaws the original engineer missed. Foundation for the Carolinas, my company had done pro bono work on their community center. The executive director's son worked in my accounting department. NASCAR Hall of Fame, we had installed their entire exhibition infrastructure. The curator wrote me recommendation letters for Chamber of Commerce awards. Brandon thinks someone is sabotaging us, Mom. He is talking about hiring a private investigator. That seems extreme, honey. Is it? Mom, Brandon asked me something today. He asked if you knew people at these venues, if you had business connections. I stayed quiet. Mom, what did I tell him? I said you were just a construction contractor, that you would not have that kind of influence. Just a construction contractor. Even my own daughter had bought into Brandon's narrative. Simone, let me ask you something. In 32 years, how many projects do you think Carrington Construction has completed? I do not know. A lot. 892 completed projects. Shopping centers, office buildings, hotels, museums, country clubs, private estates. We have employed over 700 people over the years. Subcontractors, suppliers, vendors. We have done business with every major construction company from here to Raleigh. Silence on the other end. When you build someone's dreams, Simone, they remember. When you save their project, solve their problems, deliver on time and under budget, they remember. When you employ their children, mentor their employees, sponsor their charities, they remember. Mom, what are you saying? I am saying that maybe Brandon does not understand what 32 years of honest work actually builds. 5:30. Brandon called me directly. His voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the panic underneath. Janet, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me. Of course, son. Do you have business relationships with any of the venues we have been looking at? I have done work for various clients over the years. Why? Because 9 venues have canceled our wedding today. 9. That does not happen by accident. That does seem unusual. Janet, I need to know. Are you interfering with my wedding? The question hung in the air. Brandon Ashford, the man who had spent months explaining to me how inappropriate I was, now suspected I had the power to dismantle his perfect day. Brandon, let me ask you something. Yesterday you told me I did not understand your world. Today you are asking if I have enough influence to affect your wedding. Which is it? Silence. I mean, according to you, I am just a contractor who got lucky. How could someone like me possibly have connections to 9 different venues? Janet, unless of course you were wrong about what I built here. Unless 32 years of hard work actually earned me something more than luck. I could practically hear him sweating. Look, if there has been some kind of misunderstanding, no misunderstanding, Brandon. You have been very clear about your opinion of me, and I have been very clear about understanding exactly where I stand. What do you want? There it was, the question that proved Brandon Ashford finally understood who held the power. I want you to have exactly the wedding you deserve, son. Exactly the wedding that reflects who you really are. Meaning what? Meaning a man who builds his life on other people's money while hiding his own crimes, probably should not be throwing elaborate parties. Dead silence. That is right, Brandon. I know about Ashford Capital Management. I know about the SEC investigation. I know about your gambling debts. I know about the 14 elderly clients you stole from. I know exactly who you really are. You cannot prove anything. Monday morning the FBI will prove plenty. But do not worry about Monday. Worry about tomorrow. Because tomorrow, 165 guests are going to discover that the man judging everyone else's worth is not worth anything himself. I hung up. Brandon Ashford had asked for the right kind of people at his wedding. Tomorrow he would meet them. FBI agents counted as the right kind of people, did they not? Saturday morning, 8:15. Brandon showed up at my office unannounced. I was reviewing blueprints when my assistant buzzed me. "Miss Carrington, there is a Brandon Ashford here to see you. He seems very agitated. Send him in." Brandon walked through my office door like he owned the place, but his confidence was cracking. Designer suit wrinkled, hair disheveled, dark circles under bloodshot eyes. This was a man who had not slept. "We need to talk." I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "Have a seat." He remained standing, trying to project authority in a room that screamed my success. Awards on the walls, photos of completed projects, a framed copy of my first building permit from 1992. The American dream made tangible. "You think you are clever, do you not?" I leaned back in my chair. "I think I am thorough. 13 venues, Janet. 13. Every single backup option we had. Gone overnight. That is unfortunate. Cut the act. You did this." "Did what exactly?" His hands were shaking. "You have systematically destroyed my wedding, used your connections to shut down every venue in Charlotte. Brandon, yesterday you told me I was just a lucky contractor. Today you are crediting me with controlling every venue in Mecklenburg County. Make up your mind." He started pacing. Caged animal energy. "This is not a game, Janet. Simone is devastated. Her dream wedding is ruined because you cannot handle being excluded from our social circle." Excluded from your social circle. Still talking to me like I was beneath him. "Sit down, Brandon." Something in my tone made him freeze. I said, "Sit down." Saturday, I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a folder, 49 pages of SEC investigation documents. Brandon's eyes went wide when he recognized the federal letterhead. "Let's talk about games, son. You have been playing a very dangerous one. $2.6 million in client funds. 17 separate transactions. All to cover gambling debts at Atlantic City casinos." His face went white. "Dorothy Thompson, 79 years old, retirement savings. You transferred $190,000 to your personal account, told her it was a high-yield investment opportunity. You cannot prove that is." James and Linda Washington, both 73. Their grandson's college fund, $260,000, gone. I slid another document across the desk. Bank records showing wire transfers to Borgata Casino, Caesars, Tropicana. "Here is what I find interesting, Brandon. You spent months telling me about appropriate people, about refined money, about social standards, but the whole time you were stealing from elderly clients to fund your gambling addiction. It is not stealing. It is temporary asset reallocation." Temporary asset reallocation. Even facing federal charges, he was speaking in euphemisms. The FBI does not see it that way. Neither do your 14 victims. Neither do the federal prosecutors who have been building this case for 4 months. How did I get this information? Same way I got the venue cancellations. Relationships, Brandon. Real relationships built on trust and respect, not inherited connections or old family names. He leaned forward, desperate now. "Look, Janet, maybe we can work something out. The wedding. Simone. She does not deserve to suffer for our disagreements. Simone deserves better than you. I love her. You love her money, my money. You thought marrying Simone would solve your financial problems, give you access to Carrington Construction's assets, let you pay back what you stole before anyone noticed." His silence confirmed everything. Here is what is going to happen, Brandon. Monday morning, FBI agents will arrest you for wire fraud, embezzlement, and securities violations. Your assets will be frozen. Your reputation destroyed. The Ashford name will be synonymous with financial crime, and Simone will discover she dodged a bullet. Instead of marrying a criminal, she will be free to find a man who actually deserves her. Brandon stood up slowly. This is not over. You are right. It is not over. It is just beginning. In 6 hours, 165 guests will arrive expecting a wedding. They will learn exactly who Brandon Ashford really is. You will regret this. I am a woman who built a $135 million empire from nothing through honest work. You are a trust fund criminal who destroyed elderly people's lives for poker chips. Which one of us should feel regret? At 10:30, Brandon played his last desperate card. I was having coffee when Simone called, her voice brittle with anxiety. Mom, have you seen Brandon's Instagram? I opened my laptop. Brandon had posted a video 40 minutes earlier. Professional lighting, composed expression, sitting in what looked like his family's study, old money staging at its finest. My friends, I need to address some disturbing developments regarding my wedding today. It has come to my attention that certain individuals have used unethical business practices to interfere with private family celebrations. The comments were already flooding in, Ashford family friends expressing outrage, Charlotte Society connections offering support, old money circling the wagons around one of their own. Without naming names, I want everyone to know that intimidation and business coercion will not be tolerated. The Ashford family has served this community for 5 generations. We will not be bullied by those who mistake new money for class. New money for class. Brandon was doubling down on social hierarchy even while facing federal charges. Mom, people are sharing it. Brandon's friends, his family's connections. They are saying terrible things about contractors who do not know their place, about people who do not understand Charlotte society. I scrolled through the responses. Catherine Ashford had shared the post with her own commentary. Some people never learn that wealth does not equal breeding or class, no matter how much they accumulate. Wealth does not equal breeding. Then I saw something interesting. Senator Williams had liked the post. The same Senator Williams who had been at several Carrington construction ribbon cuttings, praising my company's contribution to economic development. At 11 o'clock, my phone rang. William Hayes from the Peninsula Club. Janet, I am seeing some social media activity. People are questioning your character, your business practices. Some of my board members are concerned about our association. I understand, William. Look, I have known you for years. You are solid. But this Ashford kid has connections, real connections. Federal judges, senators, old families with serious influence. If this gets ugly, it is already ugly, William. The question is whether you believe in what I have built or what Brandon Ashford inherited. A pause. What are you not telling me, Janet? Monday morning, Brandon Ashford will be arrested by the FBI. Wire fraud, embezzlement, securities violations. He has stolen over $2.5 million from elderly clients to cover gambling debts. Silence. Jesus Christ. Janet. You are sure about this? I have the federal investigation documents, 49 pages of evidence, banking records, wire transfers, victim testimonies. Brandon Ashford is a criminal using his family name to cover his crimes, and he is trying to destroy your reputation to save his own. Exactly. At 11:45, I made my own social media post. Not a video. Just text. Simple and direct. To the Charlotte community, Monday federal agents will arrest Brandon Ashford for embezzling $2.6 million from elderly clients. Before you judge new money versus old money, ask yourself which values include stealing from grandparents to fund gambling addictions. I attached one document. A bank record showing Brandon's $190,000 transfer from Dorothy Thompson's retirement account to Borgata Casino. The response was immediate and divided. But the truth was coming. The response to my social media post came fast and furious. Catherine Ashford called my post defamatory lies and demanded I retract my accusations immediately. Senator Williams quietly unliked Brandon's video. 4 board members from various venues called to confirm our business relationships remained solid. But the real shift came at noon when James Washington, the elderly client whose grandson's college fund Brandon had stolen, shared my post with his own story. This man destroyed my family's future for blackjack tables. 47 years building a small business in Charlotte, saved every dollar for education. Brandon Ashford stole my grandson's Duke University dreams for casino chips. Then Linda Washington posted, "We trusted him because the Ashford name meant something." Brandon Ashford spent our life savings at poker tables while we ate soup to pay bills. He told us the money was in safe investments. It was in Atlantic City. 12 more victims came forward within 3 hours. Elderly retirees, working-class families, middle-class savers, all robbed by the man lecturing about appropriate social circles and refined money. The comment sections flipped. Brandon's society friends went silent. The narrative changed from new money overreach to criminal exposed. At 2 o'clock, Brandon posted again. The composed mask was gone, replaced by raw desperation. These accusations are completely false. Fabrications by someone with a personal vendetta. My lawyers will address these defamatory statements. The Ashford family's reputation will not be, he never finished. The video cut off mid-sentence because at 2:07, 3 black SUVs pulled into the Ashford family driveway in Myers Park. FBI agents arriving 20 hours early, someone had tipped them off that Brandon might flee, that someone might have been a concerned citizen who had provided evidence of ongoing financial crimes. That concerned citizen might have been a construction company owner who understood the difference between inherited privilege and earned justice. Saturday, 2:30. While FBI agents searched the Ashford estate, I was having the most important conversation of my life. Simone sat in my kitchen, the same kitchen where Brandon had dismissed my construction friends 3 days ago. Her wedding dress hung upstairs, never to be worn. Her dreams were crumbling, but her eyes were finally clear. "Mom, I need to know everything." I spread the documents across the kitchen table like dealing cards, bank records, SEC filings, client testimonies, casino receipts. 18 months of Brandon Ashford's criminal activity documented in black and white. Dorothy Thompson, 79 years old. Brandon convinced her to move her retirement account to Ashford Capital for better returns. Then he transferred $190,000 to cover losses at Borgata. Simone studied the bank statements, her hands shaking. She trusted him. They all trusted him. James and Linda Washington. Retirement savings gone. The Rodriguez family. Their daughter's medical fund disappeared. 14 families, Simone. 14 families destroyed so Brandon could chase his gambling addiction and maintain his lifestyle. How long have you known? I suspected something Thursday night. Brandon was too eager to marry into money, too desperate to access Carrington Construction's assets. So I hired Detective Mitchell to investigate. Uncle Raymond? Your father's old friend? One of those inappropriate construction friends Brandon did not want at the wedding. The irony was not lost on her. The man Brandon had dismissed as beneath him had provided the evidence that would destroy him. Raymond found the SEC investigation Friday morning, the gambling debts, the pattern of client theft. Brandon thought he was marrying a rich woman's daughter to solve his problems. Simone was quiet for a long moment, processing not just Brandon's betrayal of his clients but his betrayal of her. He never loved me, did he? Honey, no, Mom. Be honest, he saw dollar signs, did he not? Saw Carrington Construction's value and thought he had found his solution. I nodded. Truth was better than comfort. 4 weeks ago, Brandon asked me about making you a partner in Ashford Capital after the wedding, said it would combine our family's business interests. I thought it was romantic, but he was planning to use our money to pay back what he had stolen. Simone stood up and walked to the window. Outside news vans were gathering. Word was spreading about the FBI raid. The wedding guests, she said quietly. 165 people. Brandon's family, his business associates, our friends. They are all going to know. Would you rather they did not know what kind of man you almost married? No. You are right. She turned back to me. Mom, I owe you an apology. Simone, no. Let me say this. For months, I let Brandon make me ashamed of our family, of you, of where we came from. I watched him dismiss your friends, your accomplishments, your worth, and I said nothing. You were in love. I was a coward. I wanted to belong so badly in his world that I forgot where I belonged. I forgot who raised me, who sacrificed for me, who built everything I have. She picked up one of the victim testimonies. Mary Rodriguez, 76, whose medical fund had been emptied for Brandon's poker weekend. This woman lost her house, Mom, because the man I was going to marry stole her savings while I was picking out flowers and trying to impress his mother. That is not your fault, Simone, is it not? I knew Brandon was gambling. I knew he had debts. When bills started arriving at my apartment, when he started asking about your business, about our family's assets, I ignored the red flags because I wanted the fairy tale. The kitchen phone rang. Catherine Ashford. I let it go to voicemail. Mom, there is something else. Last month, Brandon asked me to co-sign a loan application, said it was for business expansion. I almost did it. Almost? I came to you, remember? Asked about potentially investing in Brandon's company. You suggested I wait until after the wedding to make any financial commitments. I remembered. Simone had been excited about joining their businesses. I had stalled. Told her to focus on wedding planning first. Something about Brandon's eagerness had bothered me. If I had signed that loan, Simone, you would be legally responsible for his debts. You would have been his exit strategy. She sat back down, the full scope of Brandon's manipulation finally clear. He did not just steal from his clients, Mom. He was planning to steal from us too. The good news is he failed. And Monday morning, justice catches up with him. Simone looked at the evidence spread across our kitchen table. 14 families destroyed, millions stolen, lives ruined. Mom, I want to do something for these families. Dorothy Thompson, the Washingtons, all of them. Carrington Construction should help them somehow. That is when I knew my daughter was going to be just fine. Saturday, 4 o'clock. The Carrington family estate was buzzing with confused energy. Against all odds, Simone had made a decision. The wedding was canceled, but the gathering would go on. 165 guests had traveled for this day. They deserved to know the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming. Simone stood on the back patio, still in her wedding dress, but her veil was gone. Behind her, Lake Norman sparkled in the afternoon Sunday. I know you are confused about the venue changes, the last-minute messages. I want to explain everything. I watched from the kitchen doorway as our guests assembled on the lawn. The Ashford family sat in the front row. Catherine Ashford, pale and furious, flanked by federal judges and old Charlotte families. My construction crew stood in the back, uncomfortable in their borrowed suits but loyal to the end. Senator Williams was there, looking increasingly nervous as plainclothes FBI agents took discreet positions around the property perimeter. Simone's voice carried across the gathering. This morning I learned something about the man I was supposed to marry. something that changed everything. A black Mercedes pulled up the driveway. Brandon, released on emergency bail, stepped out with his lawyer. His face was haggard. His expensive suit wrinkled from federal processing. He had posted $600,000 bond, money that probably belonged to his victims. "Simone, what are you doing?" Brandon called out, pushing through the crowd, telling the truth. He reached the patio, his lawyer whispering urgently in his ear, "This is a private family matter." "You do not need to." Brandon Ashford stole $2.6 million from elderly clients to fund his gambling addiction. The crowd went dead silent. You could hear Lake Norman water lapping against the dock. Catherine Ashford stood up, her face crimson. "This is outrageous. How dare you make such accusations against our family?" "FBI agents arrested him 8 hours ago." Simone continued. "Wire fraud, embezzlement, securities violations. 14 families destroyed so he could play poker in Atlantic City." Brandon's face was white as paper. "Simone, you are hysterical. The stress of the wedding, the venue problems." "There were no venue problems, Brandon. My mother canceled every booking because she discovered what you really are." Every head turned toward me. I stepped out onto the patio, carrying the folder that had started this entire chain of events. "Dorothy Thompson," I said, my voice carrying across the silent crowd, 79 years old, trusted Brandon with her retirement account. He stole $190,000 for a weekend in Vegas. Brandon's lawyer grabbed his arm. "Do not say anything. Not one word." James and Linda Washington, married 51 years. Their grandson's college fund, $260,000, spent on blackjack tables while they ate rice and beans every night to save money. I pulled out the bank records, held them up for everyone to see. Mary Rodriguez, 76, needed home health care after her stroke. Brandon emptied her medical fund for a poker tournament. She lost her house. Senator Williams was edging toward his car. Several other Ashford family associates were checking their phones, probably calling their own lawyers. "But here is what Brandon really thought of all of you," I continued. 3 days ago he called me. Told me he only wanted the right kind of people at his wedding. Said my construction friends would not understand the language of real influence. I pulled out my phone, connected it to the portable speaker Simone had set up for wedding music. Brandon went white as a sheet. "Janet, do not. The language of real influence, Janet. Generational wealth, established power. Look, I am not trying to be offensive, but there is a difference between new money and money that has been refined over time." Brandon's recorded voice filled the garden. Every word, every insult, every casual dismissal of the life that had built Carrington Construction. This marriage is Simone's chance to elevate herself, to become part of something bigger than, well, bigger than where she came from. Catherine Ashford's face was stone. Her son's voice continued from the speakers, explaining how Simone needed to leave certain things behind to be accepted by their family. Some people, frankly, might question why Brandon Ashford is marrying beneath his social tier. "You know what, Mrs. Ashford?" I said, stopping the recording. Brandon was right about one thing. This marriage would have elevated Simone. It would have elevated her from honest success to criminal accomplice. Brandon finally exploded. "You sanctimonious woman. You think you can destroy my family because we would not accept your working-class friends? You think your construction money makes you better than 5 generations of Ashford achievement? No, Brandon. I think my honest work makes me better than your stolen money." The crowd was riveted. This was better than any soap opera. "You want to talk about achievement?" I continued. Carrington Construction has employed over 700 people in 32 years, built 892 projects, contributed millions in local taxes, created jobs, built communities, earned every dollar through sweat and skill. I gestured toward his family. Ashford Capital Management stole retirement funds from grandparents to pay gambling debts. Which family's achievement are we celebrating here? Brandon lunged toward me, his lawyer barely restraining him. I will destroy you. My family has connections you cannot imagine. Your family's connections are abandoning you faster than rats from a sinking ship. I pointed to the half-empty section where Brandon's business associates had been sitting. Senator Williams left 15 minutes ago. Judge Morrison is in his car making phone calls. Your old money friends do not want to be photographed with a federal criminal. Simone stepped between us. Brandon, it is over. The FBI has your bank records, your client files, witness testimonies from 14 families. You are going to prison. Simone, please, we can work through this. Your lawyer says to keep quiet because anything you say can be used against you in federal court. Catherine Ashford finally spoke, her voice ice cold. Simone, dear, you are making a terrible mistake. Brandon made some poor financial decisions, but he destroyed people's lives for poker chips, Mrs. Ashford. While you were teaching him about social superiority, you forgot to teach him basic human decency. How dare you speak to me that way? How dare I what? Tell the truth. Brandon spent months explaining to my family that we were not good enough for yours. Turns out your family was not good enough for basic honesty. Agent Rodriguez stepped forward. I had called him 2 hours ago. Suggested he might want to witness Brandon's public statements. Mr. Ashford, you are in violation of your bail conditions by approaching witnesses in your case. You need to come with us. This is harassment. I have rights. You have the right to remain silent, which you probably should have used 10 minutes ago. As they led Brandon away in handcuffs for the second time in one day, Simone addressed the remaining guests. To Brandon's family and friends, I am sorry you discovered this way that the man you trusted was a criminal. To my mother's friends, thank you for showing me what loyalty and integrity actually look like. And to the families Brandon destroyed, Carrington Construction will be contacting you this week about victim assistance. The Ashford section was nearly empty now. Old Charlotte money had vanished like smoke when the truth came out. But my construction crew, my inappropriate friends, surrounded Simone with support and love. Catherine Ashford stood alone by her Mercedes, her 5 generations of refinement, unable to shield her from her son's crimes. Mrs. Ashford, I called out as she reached her car. You were right about one thing. Some people never learn their place in society. Your son never learned that his place was as an honest man, not a criminal who preys on the elderly. She drove away without a word. Simone found me by the lake an hour later as the last guests were leaving. Mom, do you think I made the right choice? I looked at my daughter. Beautiful, strong. Finally free from Brandon Ashford's manipulation. Honey, you made the only choice that lets you look yourself in the mirror. The Ashfords will never forgive this public humiliation. The Ashfords will be too busy with federal prosecutors to worry about us. She smiled for the first time in days. So, what happens now? Now we get back to being a family that earns respect instead of demanding it. Monday morning, 8:52. Brandon Ashford's arrest made the front page of the Charlotte Observer. Investment manager charged in $2.6 million elderly fraud scheme. The photo showed Brandon in handcuffs, his Princeton ring visible as federal agents led him from the courthouse. I was having coffee when Simone called from her apartment uptown. Mom, have you seen the news coverage? Hard to miss. Channel 9 wants an interview. They are calling it new money integrity versus old money crime. I told them no comment. Good choice. Let the evidence speak. At 10 o'clock, Catherine Ashford called my office directly. Miss Carrington, I want to discuss a settlement regarding this misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding, Mrs. Ashford. Your son is a criminal. The Ashford family has contributed to this community for over a century. Surely we can reach some accommodation that protects both our reputations. Your reputation was destroyed by your son's choices, not my actions. She hung up. By noon, the full scope of Brandon's crimes had emerged. 19 total victims, $3.1 million stolen. Federal prosecutors were seeking 10 to 14 years in prison. Simone drove up that evening carrying takeout from our old neighborhood barbecue place, the one Brandon said was not refined enough for Ashford family dinners. We ate at the kitchen table where this whole mess had started. "Mom, I have been thinking about what you said about earning respect versus demanding it, and I quit my marketing job today. I want to come work for Carrington Construction." I nearly choked on my sweet tea. "Simone, you have a business degree from Wake Forest. You could work anywhere. I want to work somewhere. I am proud of what we build, literally and figuratively." 5 months later, Brandon Ashford was sentenced to 11 years in federal prison. He will serve at least 9. The 14 families Brandon robbed, Carrington Construction established a victim restitution fund. We could not give them back their innocence, but we could help rebuild their security. Simone officially joined the company as Director of Community Relations. Her first project, affordable senior housing for elderly residents, people like the ones Brandon had preyed on. Catherine Ashford moved to Charleston. The Ashford estate went on the market. 5 generations of Charlotte prominence ended by 1 generation's greed. Last week, Simone started dating Detective Mitchell's nephew, a public defender who represents families Brandon would have dismissed as inappropriate. Sometimes the best revenge is not revenge at all. Sometimes it is just living well, building honestly, and teaching your children that respect is earned one relationship at a time, one project at a time, one honest day's work at a time. The right kind of people understand that. The rest never did matter anyway. This morning I drove past the Charlotte Country Club, the place where Brandon had dismissed me as just a contractor, where Catherine had questioned my background, where I had been assigned to table 15 near the kitchen doors. The south wing we renovated in 2019 still stands. My company's work, built to last. Just like the relationships I spent 32 years building. Just like the reputation I earned through sweat and integrity. Brandon Ashford thought old money and family names were power. He learned too late that real power comes from the people who remember when you kept your word, when you built something that lasted, when you stood for something that mattered. 14 elderly victims learned that too, and so did my daughter. That lesson alone was worth every canceled venue, every public confrontation, every moment of this entire painful journey. Because now Simone knows what I have always known. You do not need the right kind of people to accept you. You just need to be the right kind of person. Everything else follows. And while he was lecturing her about refined money and social standards, he was stealing $2.6 million from elderly clients to cover his gambling debts. 14 families destroyed. 19 victims total. All so he could play poker in Atlantic City while pretending to be old money royalty. Where are you listening from right now? What city? What state? What country? Drop it in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories reach across the world. Hit that like button if this story resonated with you. Share it if you know someone who has ever been dismissed because their job was not fancy enough, because they came from the wrong neighborhood, because someone with an old family name thought they could look down on honest work. Subscribe, because I have more stories about people who built empires from nothing, who proved that respect is earned, not inherited, and who showed that the right kind of people are the ones with integrity. And here is the bigger question. Have you ever seen someone lecture about class and standards while hiding their own crimes? Someone who judged everyone else while being the worst person in the room? Because that is what Brandon Ashford did, and that is what Janet Carrington exposed. Thanks for listening. Remember, you do not need the right kind of people to accept you. You just need to be the right kind of person. Build something honest. Keep your word. Earn your respect one relationship at a time. The people who matter will remember, and the people who do not remember never mattered anyway. See you in the next story.